Friday Pin Day and Tesla earnings preview is our show for today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. If you enjoy the show, would like tips and ideas as we head into the week of trading, please take time to join us on Patreon as well as like and subscribe. So today I wanted to sort of take some time out. You know, when we're heading into earnings, we usually have a large number of shows sort of breaking down different aspects of what, you know, might occur, etc. I have to say that post S&P entry, the whole Tesla process has changed. So in the good old days before S&P, the stock price would be bouncing around a lot heading into earnings, a lot of unpredictability. As we would get into earnings day, good or bad, Tesla stock price could be expected to move 100 points approximately, you know, and there'd be either euphoria on the look at what they made or negative on, oh no, look at what did not happen. Now, this all has kind of changed over the last 6 months for sure, but now when earnings happen, there's kind of a, well, given that we already have the production numbers, we actually already know generally what the revenue numbers might be. And so that number is, let's call it $55,000 per vehicle in terms of prices times the number of vehicles produced for that period. And so based on having those numbers, we're now in an interesting position where the only thing that can happen during the actual earnings announcement when we see the rest of the balance sheet is, well, what kind of things might have happened that were bad that negatively impact the balance sheet enough for it to negatively influence both the company and the stock price? The only fly we can see in the ointment is there have been some discussions about the fact that the chip shortages are affecting the number of Powerwalls that can be produced, so there's a backlog of those. The next thing that we're kind of lurking on is the fact that there are a large number of projects that are running expense but no profit right now. What are those? Obviously, Germany's Gigafactory, Austin's Gigafactory, as well as the new battery plant are fairly large in the amount of capital going in, but in terms of new profit revenue coming from them, that ain't happening right now. So now we're in the position of, okay, those expenses could actually be bad news for Tesla because it might weigh on their earnings to have non-producing profitability. And then the final note is that I would argue, based on the numbers we've been seeing, Tesla used to be 75% vertically integrated. There's a big discussion about that vertical integration rising into that 90% zone, comparable evidently to what Toyota's doing. As you'll recall, Toyota isn't 90% vertically in-house, but because they control the suppliers that come into them, being on their boards and manage carefully what they supply to Toyota, they are in essence the only other 90% vertically integrated company. Now, the benefit of 90% vertically integrated are clear. You can move faster to do what you want to do because you don't have to wait on suppliers. You know, there are a long list of benefits, and Tesla has shown those. The one slight drawback is how capital works. The fact that now you have a situation where instead of having outside suppliers giving you 90-day, 120-day terms, so you can use their cash as, in essence, free financing, you don't have that free financing capability of having large numbers of outside vendors that you can, get terms from. I would say that the only exception to this might be that there are sort of a term sheet between Panasonic and Tesla when it comes to the battery factory. And that is a decent number, but Tesla's riding that curve of having the benefit of vertical integration on that portion of the vehicle, but at the same time being able to pick up terms if they wanted to use that as a financing method. So the question mark then is, can or will there be something kind of negative that pops up on the balance sheet that we should be aware of? And the answer I'm coming up with on that one is not really. And the reason is that we were kind of briefed on the fact that the dollars coming in from the EV tax credits are still large, and they're actually growing right now, even though they're expected to decline in the future. So we have an interesting position right now where basically Elon has the freedom to flex what the number is for the contribution from the EV tax credits, because he can just draw cash down in and sort of create whatever sort of earnings picture the market or he would like to see. So this is a huge luxury that means that it just gives us a very low chance that Tesla will miss sort of profitability / earnings numbers, despite having the negative elements that I just described. So the other thing about earnings is that there are sort of two components. What do things look like currently and backwards? And we've already seen the production numbers, which are at the high end or exceeding numbers expected. And so I think that portion of the evaluation is solid. The next part of the question is, what do things look like going forward? And I have to say that I really believe that the numbers coming forward look way better than the numbers going backwards. And the reason is that China's facilities in Shanghai are continuing to grow rapidly. We also have growth in the number of vehicles and the price per vehicle of vehicles like the new Plaid that are coming out of the Fremont factory. So what I see kind of happening is Fremont is taking over the premium end of the business production for the company, and China is taking over sort of the budget end of things for global shipments. And I think this is a nice split of duties, and it allows the Fremont facility to keep increasing its revenue numbers without its car numbers necessarily jumping huge counts. So my overall assessment of things is that I think we're looking really good for Tesla right now. I would agree with the argument that when we look at Tesla right now, one of the problems that's going on is that it's starting to look like a very solid company that doesn't have a lot of flashy smash to it versus a smashy flash company that isn't very solid. And I bring up this angle of things because it turns out that large institutions really like predictable growth that makes sense. And the hedge fund guys don't like that. They like things that are really flashy and sexy. And so for this reason, I think that when Tesla's earnings come in, we see decent numbers, but we're not going to see fantastic movement of stock price right away, because we really have to wait on the analysts that work with the large institutions to give us their clear sense of how things are going, and therefore we can sort of make our assessment of things from there. So I'm, I guess, cautiously optimistic about what's going to happen. I think it's going to be good. I'm also kind of excited because Cybertruck and more production from the folks in Austin are the first round of what's going to add. So it's very easy to see how Tesla continues to grow at a rapid pace, and the new production facilities coming online help facilitate that. So my assessment of things is we're in a solid position when it comes to heading into earnings. My only sad point is that we don't get to see flashy, rapid updrafts in stock price, because we've sort of moved on to middle age stage for Tesla rather than, the younger rapid fire zone that we were in previously. The other thing I wanted to cover today, and by the way, don't forget to like and subscribe. We also want to encourage you to consider joining us on Patreon, and we also wanted to mention that we have some SpaceX shares. If there's interest there, please drop us a note on Facebook in the private message area. So what I wanted to also cover today is we've entered a fairly intense regular period of Friday pins. Obviously, today's Friday. Obviously, there's been another pin that's been executed basically Thursday into Friday, and the numbers we're looking at suggest that sub 650, no doubt heading for 640 or below, would further allow the market makers to make a lot of money. There's a lot of questions out there when it comes to the options on these and how the pin process is controlling it. Like there are 30,000 puts at 600 for the second weeks in a row. And the stock got nowhere near 600, so a lot of people lost money that way. There's a whole bunch of calls between 650 and 700 that have been purchased and still on the books all the way through today that are going to expire worthless based on how the pin process works. I would say I'm a bit surprised by this because I really was expecting that given how well the market makers have done to control Tesla's stock price and sort of bringing in at that 650 level regularly last few weeks, I'm starting to expect that folks will say, hey, we've lost enough on call options that made nothing or put options that made nothing. It's time to start trimming the amount of these that we purchase. And the answer to that has been nope. We're still seeing huge amounts of these out there and huge amounts of people losing large amounts of money in the process. And I'd have to say I'm surprised, stunned, and look forward to, an answer to this in the form of supply and demand where people just get sick of losing money and do fewer of these rather than the head count or the number count of these continue to rise. The big exception for this would be the fact that this is a huge week as earnings are announced, and there are expected to be a lot of changes. And we're going to be doing our over the weekend show in terms of preview of the coming week in light of earnings arriving, and look for that from us sometime on over the weekend. We also have another show coming up on Peter Lynch that relates to where Tesla is currently, that I think you might enjoy, involving what's going on with production in China. Any rate, we very much look forward to your commentary on this. Welcome to another ugly pin Friday below 650. We all know why this is happening, which is market makers making a killing on all the people that have call options from 650 to 720 to 750, and those expiring worthless. It really makes you start to believe that it's time to sell some covered calls or do a spread that allows you to make money on this, because this has gotten to be such a routine event when there aren't earth-shattering news items coming from the company. And frankly, I think that's the one last piece that's lurking there is, will we get some interesting news? For example, if Austin was going to start up in August or September, that would definitely move the stock, because all of a sudden we'd have to move the numbers in terms of expected produced vehicles and profit from those vehicles. Any rate, we look forward to your input, and next we kind of move on to our health tips. I'm really efforting on the daily bike rides on the Brompton, along with core training. So that means there's a whole list of exercises. I'd have to say for me, the laying on your back with the bicycle and your hands behind your neck, with turns to each side as you sort of pedal the bike from a laying position is one of them. But I have to say that I'm stunned at how good the experience has been with this, and wanted to encourage all of you to consider this as well. It's called core training. Also wanted to encourage you, prior to lovemaking, don't forget, wanted to encourage you to not eat anything large meal-wise. A salad or something in that frame kind of makes sense, and what I would encourage you to consider. Any rate, and we also have our further list below. I also wanted to ask if you're a doctor or a medical professional of some sort and would like to add that to the list, to our list of health tips, to please do that, because I think that this is a group effort for health for all of us and is appreciated. At any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss German, au revoir French, Lihitarov Hiru, Hoda Hafez Farsi, Namaste Hindi, Konbanwa Japanese, Zdravstvuyte, hello in Russian, Ni hao ma, hello in Chinese, Hey do, our friends in Sweden. Good day, our friends in Australia. And in Jamaica, we say, Nuff respect, walk good. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. We look forward to your comments and a really big week coming up when it comes to Tesla with its earnings.